And welcome back, everybody, to the UMG Champions Apex Legends Arena Invitational. And I'm Taylor Reflections Noble, joined by Onset and Gaskin. This time around, I'm not going to flip them up, but they do. There we see. That's the names I was looking for, right? Before I called Rain Day Onset, and I don't know if he liked that too much, but I definitely gassed him up while gassing you. I don't know if he caught that, but it was fun, man. Hey, we got a good series. Gaskin, we have Era. Who's Era playing? What's the other team name?
Mark.
I've got you, Dan. Don't worry. I've got you. We're a duo. Dan is struggling to say the word Neanderthals because he is a Neanderthal. Cannot say words which are longer than two syllables.
Right, you know what? Everyone has one word. I want to say Neanderthals, but I know it's Neanderthals. Does that make any sense? My brain always puts an R in it, and I don't know why. Because
absolutely
I am a Neanderthal.
No, that makes sense. Absolutely no sense whatsoever, but, you know.
Yeah, I don't get it either, but I'll believe you, all right? I'm not looking to pick a fight here. I just thought it was funny. Yeah, Neanderthals. Sometimes it's a tongue twister, I guess. Let's look at Group C on set. Pittsburgh Knights, they got the victory over Rolla Theory, 3-0. Oxygen obviously taken very heavy loss to CLG. That was pretty one-sided. It was at map 2 that I think bit them in the butt in the end. So Oxygen now will have to fight for their life and lose their bracket against Rolla Theory. Pittsburgh Knights, though, will face off against CLG. How do you think that one's going to turn out?
It's going to be interesting, to be honest with you. It's difficult to judge off a bracket, right, that it's that one-sided in all of the first games, because you're like, Oxygen and Roller Theory didn't really give us anything, to be honest. So we were looking at and going, yeah, these guys could make a deep run in the tournament, whereas Knights and CLG just kind of had to deal with what was in front of them. CLG were hitting some nice shots in that last game, which is always a good thing to be doing in any competitive shooter, as we all know. And there were some clutch moments for them as well, and some decent decision making in some final moments as well. The one in particular on Thermal Station, playing the zone instead of getting trapped into an awkward 1v1, just giving yourself those little advantages. So CLG are going to be feeling a lot more confident. Knights obviously going to be feeling confident as well, but it's kind of difficult to lay down a solid prediction on how that's going to go based off what's happened so far.
Fair enough. Well, Gaskin, Group D is also taking place, and we're about to watch at least one of those matchups, and that's going to be Era versus Neanderthals, which is going to be a great one. I was looking at the standings, and honestly, Neanderthals might be the secret powerhouse, even though Era Eternity, I think, has a bigger, obviously, following, including the names that's on that roster. Rise, though, did take an L to Era Eternity. I know a girl said that was, potentially a 50-50, but I'm curious, will the Rise Gears guys be able to make it through? They do have Na'Vi they're going to have to face off against. How's Group D stacking up to you, Gaskin?
I'm going to answer your question, will Rise make it through, with a solid no.
Wow!
From the judgment with the 3-0 they've gone through, now they're going up against Na'Vi. I don't think it's going to be comfortable for them. How many times did you want to say Neanderthals rather than Neanderthals, by the way? Just checking. 0. Okay, just checking that. I'm still really stupid. Okay, yeah, that's
You're not. Hey, it happens.
Taylor, don't try and make him feel better about this. This is ridiculous. He cannot say the word Neanderthals.
You're so mean.
Well, I said it correctly.
I'm honest because I love him. That's you know what I mean. Like, it's the tough love kind of thing. It's like it's a simple word. It's Neanderthal.
Yeah, and I've said it correctly 4 or 5 times now, but I was telling him why sometimes my brain pauses for a second because it wants to put an R in it.
He's playing a victim card. Don't let him do it. He just wants unnecessary attention. Don't give it to him. It's not happening.
All I'm saying is I feel his pain. There was a team called Agarthus, and it took me so long to figure out how to say Agarthus. I was saying Agarthus, every possible way you could mess it up. So I feel his pain, I do. And Onset, we'll find a way to get back at you a little bit later on, all right? Come on, you already knew that was going to be taking place. Well, hey, let's get into it. Era versus Neanderthal. It is going to be a great series, and this is for a spot guaranteed into playoffs tomorrow. So obviously this is going to be a big win for either roster. No one wants to drop down to the loser bracket. When we talk about Era, though, Onset, a lot of star-studded names on this roster.
Yeah, certainly are, and a team that have done decently well in the AOGS as well. They need to step up to that next level, which is so difficult for teams to do at the moment. It seems like the depth of talent in the AOGS and in Apex in general is just getting deeper and deeper, and it becomes even more difficult to break out that sort of second level of teams where they want to break into top 10, top 5s consistently. And that word at the end of the sentence, consistency, is what is the secret to success. Finding that success is almost impossible to find across AOGS games. In arenas, however, you can kind of make it a little bit different. You can be a little bit more consistent because you can play strategies round after round and you get that kind of pattern of play. So for Era, I think that this might be a good one for them. For the other team, I think we have to ask Dan on his opinion, though. because
why is that?
We will get some practice in for him. We'll get the repetition. Look, cover, right check.
All right, Gaskin, you want to talk about Neanderthals? You want to talk about the maps? Which way do you want to go with this one?
Neanderthals. There we go. Did it.
Hey!
Thermal station, party crasher, overflow, phase runner, encore. Yeah, pretty standard. We know what the maps are going to be now. I don't think the order is going to matter too much. I think Era Eternity are going to make short work of Neanderthals, if I'm honest.
Okay.
But we'll see whether they get it done in like a 3-0 fashion or whether Neanderthals are going to put up a fight. I hope Neanderthals do put up a bit of a fight, but I do think Era Eternity are the dominant force when it comes to arenas. Might be slightly different if this was a battle royale format, but here we are. It's arenas.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, we have seen Era obviously play, especially these 3 members on Era whenever it comes to arenas in our previous tournaments. But I just want to kind of back up a little bit, Gaskin. Why do you feel Neanderthals might be at a big disadvantage? Because, again, you'd look at the BR standings, and like you said, wisely so, if it was BR, right, it would be a little bit different. But seriously, though, why do you think Era has such a leg up?
So in BR, you can hide and you can survive and you can earn points by doing so. You can't do that in Arena. It's just straight up fights. I think Era Eternity are a better team in 3v3 engagements, not by a large margin, but I just think they will have the slight edge. Happy to be proved wrong there. Happy to be proved wrong.
Well, I mean, when you think about a Neanderthal, what did they do? Or at least what did they? I don't know what they did. Personally, I never met a Neanderthal unless, Gaskin, you are one. But that's what Onset's saying. Okay. But,
I feel like I'm closer than anyone here, to be honest with you, on the deaths of being a Neanderthal. Yeah.
Well, Neanderthals, what did they do? They hid and, they fought and they killed. I don't know. Maybe they might be good at arenas, vicious as they might be. I think, Gaskin, you made it very apparent who you're going with. So is Era your team that you're going to be backing up?
No, I'm going to go for Neanderthals. I'm joking. Of course I'm going for
Era Eternity. What?
Of course I am. Production just panicked for a second. They were like, yeah, but we got it. Era Eternity, yeah, I think they will take down Neanderthals. 3-1 is what I'm going to go for.
3-1. So it went from a dominant 3-0. It's not even close to 3-1. So now you're already starting to lean a little bit more towards Neanderthals. On set, who are you going to be going for?
Neanderthals, just because I wanted to go against Dan for once. To be honest with you, we're too friendly. We're all on the same team here. But I think these guys are talented. We've seen them win games in LGS this season in the Pro League, and I think that they've got a little bit of a clutch factor about. I think they're going to surprise Dan. I think they are. I think Dan's kind of put them to the side a little bit here, and I think they're going to surprise us and. They're going to take the series home. Might not be comfortable, might not be pretty, but it's going to be effective. I think is the best way to look at it.
Do Neanderthals really care about being comfortable or pretty? I don't know.
I certainly don't.
What do you think?
I think like Mark, pretty and comfortable. That's Mark. Look at him. Looks very happy. Era Eternity from the chat as well. So at least me and chat are together. Maybe they can't say the word Neanderthals. That's why they weren't able to vote for it, because they just couldn't spell it.
Now, that's a fact. I for sure can't spell it, all right? Now, I know that. Now, I can say it. Can I spell? No, I struggle to spell the and. It's really weird whenever it goes... Whatever. Check it out, guys. Map number 1 is about to start. It's going to be a fun battle between Era and Neanderthals. Like I said, one team moves forward to playoffs. The other will have a little bit of a longer day because they're going to drop down to losers and try and survive. Onset Gaskin, take it away.
Let's get it. I'm ready for this one, Dan. And I'm going to give you an opportunity here at the start before we get into the gameplay. I'm going to ask Twitch chat just to close your ears for 2 seconds, all right? Just don't look. We're going to not put Dan under any pressure here. Just say Neanderthal. Oh, my God, I didn't say it! Neanderthals. 3 times in a row. Just for my sake as well. And then I'll follow you up because I think that I could probably use some help.
Neanderthals.
Nice. Neanderthals. I think we're ready for the series, Dan. I'm impressed. You've see, this is what I mean about tough love, everybody at home. If Dan hadn't had the tough love, he wouldn't be the man he is right now, being able to say the word Neanderthals. Well, here we go. We're into our first game of the series. And as you can see, we're heading over to Thermal Station. And you're giving a lot of love to Era Eternity, and I can understand the reason why. But I just feel like Neanderthals is one of these teams who, as weeks go past, as months go past, are going to be one of those teams we're talking more and more about.
Look, what I've learned in my time as an analyst when I'm on a desk is you've got to be sure about why you're making a decision, about why you are picking someone to win a game. I've seen a lot more of Era Eternity play arenas than I have seen Neanderthals. Do you know how much of the Neanderthals I've seen play arenas? None. So yeah. I will go and say Era Eternity are going to be amazing, because if they are amazing, I look great. But we have seen Neanderthals, perform well in Battle Royale. They can win engagements. They can win 3v3 fights. it is probably going to be a lot closer than I've alluded to, but I'm certainly excited for it.
Well, one thing we should point out as well, that there's a little bit of a sprinkling of G2 on this lineup as well. You do have, I think it was Dezignful I just caught there, who's going to be playing on the Era Eternity lineup. A player from G2 we know have had a lot of success in arenas, a lot of success in Battle Royales, and to be honest with you, a lot of success in Apex Legends. So that's certainly going to be a player you don't want to be going up against. But for Neanderthals, you've got Strictl, you've got Exile, and you've got Blitziin, all players who have kind of worked their way up the ladder, so to speak, to find themselves in this kind of position. As you can also see, the Dezignful is trying to get into a cheeky position up on that high ground as well. So Neanderthals holding zone at the moment, trying to hold this platform down.
Really important positioning here. You've got to make sure you're in a spot where you can consistently hit some shots, but also don't leave yourself too vulnerable to be pinched by the opposition team, especially when you're going to go up against the likes of Pathfinders, the likes of Octanes, which can very quickly close that gap. And Dezignful's got into a little bit of a sneaky spot, as you say, and can really be a nuisance to the Neanderthals.
Yeah, it looks like Exile hasn't got any meds to work with either. He doesn't have any shield cells. He's going to be desperately hoping a teammate can get close and get near. Dezignful is going to be forced down, though. Stuhni's going to be hit as well, and there is the first knock coming in. And even though the damage was done, it's going to be Era Eternity who do get that first knock. Stuhni will fall. Dezignful should be able to get some meds off as well up on that high ground, but you can see at the moment, Neanderthals just trying to get any kind of angles they can. And at the moment, the only angle that they're finding is 180 degrees down to the floor as Exile hits the floor, hits the dirt, misses a few shots. Everyone's missing shots. Finally, one connects, and that will be round one to Era Eternity.
And it was just about positioning, really. I think Era Eternity slowly but surely forced Neanderthals back to a corner where they weren't really able to get out of it. And plus the elevated positioning we saw from Dezignful coming through meant everything was just really awkward for Neanderthals at that point. Era Eternity going 1-0 up. They'll have a better economy going here into round two. And we could see a snowball if they put 2 on the board here. Whereas Neanderthals, they really need to answer back here. Maybe it's going to be about early positioning, ensure that Era Eternity aren't able to slowly surround them like they did in round one.
Dezignful having a real impact, like you said, with that positioning up on high ground. But for Neanderthals now, it looks like a direct sprint down the middle of the map to try and catch some players on the cross. Dezignful, though, has already managed to get into a position to slow that down as Era Eternity are now kind of trapped Neanderthals inside of this building.
It happens a lot on Thermal. You'll see teams play the center circle, as it were. Ooh, nice shots coming out from Exile as well. Does get the crack onto Dezignful. But it is a real power position, the center of the map, because you can play both doors and you can play Ring Around the Rosies, and you can almost force your opponents to have to take both sides, and then you can just push one of those players. You're almost trying to separate them and ensure that they're not able to stay together as a 3. At the moment, Neanderthals are just going to be patient here, waiting to see what information they can gather before they decide how they want to play this next move.
Dezignful seeing some really nice shots. Exile will fall, and one thing that's worrying at the moment is damage output. You can see that there's also a knock on the inside as well, and that little bit of a distraction on the door might just open the door of the round, as Dezignful will actually be taken down here. So it's not quite over yet, but it is now, as Era Eternity will finally collapse. But damage-wise, Dan, it just seems like Neanderthal are always at a disadvantage, both HP and with the meds that they have in their inventory.
Might be down to confidence as well. The Era Eternity lineup just seems to be a little bit more confident with the shots and where they're pushing. They're being more aggressive with their positioning, that's for sure. Whereas Neanderthals are just somewhat leaving themselves vulnerable to those angles, vulnerable to being hit by 1 or 2 wingman shots. And once you've been cracked in arenas, you are in a state where you're going to get pushed, and someone is going to be able to just delete you off of the map. But it means Era Eternity now just 1 point away from taking this map on 3-0. So Neanderthals, they need an answer, and they need it now.
And jump pad comes out from Octane. They will be able to reach the dome first, which is where this zone is going to be pulling to. However, some damage already being done from distance here by Bowswer. A few shots to whip over his shoulder and whisk past his ears, but not going to be really connecting for now. Once again, you're just looking at the damage output so far, Dan. Already Strictly having to delve into the backpack for some meds.
Technically, you could say that Neanderthals have a better position right now, just having that donut building, but Era Eternity can play this one nice and slow. They can wait. They've already done the damage to Neanderthals. They've already forced some of those resources out. So if they can get a little bit more damage, Dezignful is going to be the key player to watch here, because he can grapple on in, take height away from them, and be that initiator that Era Eternity need before they then just, you know, hop on in and do the rest of the damage. But Dezignful does have to be careful. Can't afford to go down here.
Yeah, playing a really good angle, though, making sure that he isn't exposing the top of his head. We all know the Pathfinder is a little bit taller than a lot of Legends. So very easy to get carried away and not know your angles, but one thing he's doing incredibly well, as I say, is knowing every single angle that he does have. A few shots going to come in there from the car. They're just going to back him down, but all of this is just a distraction at this point, Dan. As Dezignful now backs up to this second pillar, we'll have to pop a battery and have to be careful about it as well. Finally going to drop down, and that'll be the end of his grapples for the round.
Yeah, no more grapple, so no more elevation. And Exile, perhaps knowing that, will instead try and take that position, but instead will drop. Still has one grapple, though, so at least he could go for it again if he want to. But this is a much slower round. Neanderthals, again, playing a little bit scared and a little bit worried, but they do have the zone over Era Eternity, so that's the advantage. They can afford to be patient here and wait for Era Eternity to have to push in, and that is going to have to happen in the next 20 seconds. But there is jump pads, there is the ability for Era Eternity to close this gap very quickly.
Well, meds are starting to become an issue for both teams now. That's why you're seeing a little bit more aggression in the zone also. It's going to force the two teams into each other. A little bit of a scrap going down on the staircase underneath. So one team will have the top of the donut and one team will have the lower side of it as well. But Era Eternity just bursting through and almost unchallenged here will make two players fall on their back. Last player alive will be taken down, and that just looked all too easy for Era Eternity. 1-0 up in the series.
Neanderthals just didn't seem to be ready for anyone to push up the stairs. I don't know whether it was just the audio cue of the jump pad that had them confused and they were too much focused on that one player who was joining them on the top of the donut that they didn't realize two players were coming hurtling up the stairs like a reverse helter-skelter. But it was very impressive, the push from Era Eternity, and a very impressive map number one. And I think Neanderthals are going to be a little bit, well, surprised by the speed of which Era Eternity just won that one.
I think I said it looked all too simple, and it did. It really wasn't one of those rounds where, or there wasn't really a round where I was like, okay, at one point here, Neanderthals are in control of this. They've got a knock or they have damage. It always felt like they were on the back foot from the initial damage that was done. And as we say, when you get to 2-0, the economy becomes a real problem because you know the other team have the advantage of playing slower. They have more meds. They can kind of just do the poke damage, and from there, it was very simple. It was a little bit worrying, that kind of performance for Neanderthals, especially on a map that we've seen in multiple arenas tourneys.
Yeah, I think that they'll be looking at that and wondering what went wrong. And I think the first point of question is, were they too passive when it came to this? Did they give too much of the map to Era Eternity? I will let them off for this last round because they did have the zone. They did have the positioning. They were perfectly within their right to wait, be patient, and force Era Eternity to actually push on them. But my problem with it was they weren't looking outside of the building. They weren't challenging Era Eternity, and they let them freely walk up on them and take the donut building underneath them. So that was the biggest mistake for me in that final round. But now we move over to Party Crasher, and perhaps we'll see the Neanderthals turn things around. Because we've seen a lot of back and forth series today. We've seen kind of 3-0s turn into then 3-0s the other flip way. So I'm certainly not counting Neanderthals out just yet.
I'm worried for them. I've got to be honest with you. You know, you're quite right. We can't count them out as yet. But that performance in map one didn't show me anything that can prove that they're going to take down Era Eternity, especially with Dezignful in the team as well, who, as we say, has got so much experience now in arenas. You know, they've won arenas tournaments. He's one of the best arenas players there probably is, to be honest with you, at the moment, as well as one of the best BR players. It's a struggle. And I don't know if it's a lack of aggression, like you were saying. I think it's just the fact that they weren't allowed to be aggressive. Every time they tried to poke, they were just getting outshot. And sometimes it is that simple that you can't get across the map because you're being suppressed by those wingman shots that are coming in.
I think suppression is really important in arenas in general. You need to have players who are confident to hit shots from a distance so that you can stop the other team walking up on you and taking position off of you, because it's all about positioning. It's all about trying to get the advantage over your opposition to ensure that they can't actually do damage to you together. If they're just forced into a corner where they can only look one way, they're not going to be able to shoot your teammate who can now just freely push to the left-hand side. So it's all about positioning. It's all about that suppressing fire that you talk about. And we didn't see enough of that from Neanderthals. Instead, they kind of just like stood, they waited. Yeah, okay, they would hit some reply shots to Era Eternity, but it was Era Eternity who were hitting shots, then pushing up because of those shots, whereas Neanderthals were just hitting reply shots, as I said.
Well, one thing that's certainly going to be difficult for Neanderthals now is the fact that we've got a kind of a similar paced map now as well. When we go over to Party Crasher, a lot of poke damage going to be exchanged, whether it's down on the Mirage Voyage side of the map, where you've got the kind of players sort of ducking and weaving behind the boxes for that initial wingman damage, or if we're on the stage side down at the top of the screen, I should say, by that big Oasis sign, it's kind of plays very similar with the wingman initial damage. I wonder if it's going to be Era Eternity once again, if they do get that damage, who are going to try and keep that pace up and try and really stifle Neanderthals here.
They were just the ones who were constantly leading and taking the initiative and forcing Neanderthals to retreat. So if we see more of that, then I would expect to see a somewhat similar result. But if we see the Neanderthals actually show some aggression here, then perhaps that's going to make Era Eternity second guess themselves, and perhaps we'll get a closer game.
We're over to the Mirage Voyage side of things with the circle anyway, but it looks like Era Eternity have decided to take a little bit of a different move here to start with, and actually it looks like a circle that might be finishing more towards the center of our map here. Blitziin's going to be playing up on high, playing around the speakers, trying to get a tune out of them, but at the moment no shots being fired in anger. The shots being exchanged, but once again it's just that poke damage. Dezignful's going to take a little bit of damage himself, so at least at the start of this round is Neanderthals who are getting a little bit more ground, a little bit more damage done, plus it looks like they're going to be able to get those meds on that pill.
Yeah, get some resources and at least give yourselves a chance to have a battle if it does come down to it. Stuhni playing the bubble and just getting a little bit of damage, and actually it's going to be the first knock going towards the Neanderthals, but there's the reply, so it's going to be a 2 versus 2.
Stuhni just playing on this backside here. Lovely crack onto Exile when he was down to low health. However, Exile will win that battle, and now it all falls down to Dezignful. It's a 1v2. As Strictl is going to pop around this corner. The gun shield up, but Dezignful puts the player on his back, and Dezignful also gets out of dodge here. However, it's Pathfinder on Pathfinder here. Exile has the HP advantage, and I don't think Dezignful realizes he's got the time maybe to get a battery off here, and it's just a little game of ring around the rosy. And at the moment, Exile cannot find Dezignful. He's just bought enough time here to get this battery off. Exile's now going to climb. He's going to climb into Dezignful. 45, misses the second shot. Dezignful now down on low HP. Exile just trying to get one more bullet off to finish things, but Dezignful is making this the most difficult fight he can. And finally, Exile gets it done, and that will be Neanderthals with the first round on the board.
That could have been ugly, right? If Neanderthals had lost that, I think they would have very much been down and out. I don't think that you come back from that. There was no right that Dezignful should have even had a chance to win that. It was probably important that it was still a Pathfinder alive for Neanderthals, because you're able to catch up with Dezignful, you're able to make it awkward for him to heal. Dezignful probably will be a little bit annoyed that he didn't win it after he got the bat off, because once he got the bat off, he reset and he was able to level the playing field, but unfortunately he just wasn't able to get connections with those wingman shots. Very nearly managed to clutch up, but just was one shot short when he went for the reload, got hit in the head, and that will be 1-0, as you say, to Neanderthals. But Era Eternity still somehow managing to make it very awkward.
I love that from Dezignful. He's just lost a 1v1 clutch. So what does he do? Swings straight back into the action now. He wants to make amends for things. He'll hit the gun shield. He hit a couple of nice shots as well. And no fear being shown here by Dezignful. Didn't pop a shield. And now Bowswer moves up to get the first knock. So Dezignful being so impactful after a disappointing 1v1 loss in that previous round.
Yeah, what he did is he allowed his two teammates to push up for free there, because everyone was staring at Dezignful. He was very much in enemy lines there, down in the trenches. They were all staring at him, and his other two teammates said, you know what, well, now we can push up for free, we can do the damage, and we'll take that round. We'll tie this up 1-1. We don't want to play some slow, boring round. Instead, we're just going to get in the face of our opponents. Love it.
Yeah, I love the kind of seizing the moment from Era Eternity. Losing that first round, Neanderthals might have got a little bit of momentum back after that first map, right, where they got kind of brushed aside. What's the one way to put the pressure back onto them? Put them under pressure straight away. Throw yourselves at them, hit some big shots, force them on the back foot, don't give them any ground. And that's exactly what Era Eternity did now. The question is for me, how did Neanderthals now reply to that, Dan?
I think that Neanderthals will be a little bit surprised at how quickly Dezignful pushed in, but they need to make sure they're not all looking at the same person. Someone there had to take the initiative and say, well, you two look at the Pathfinder that's amongst us, and I'll keep my eye on elsewhere. Put some suppressing fire down so it's not as easy for his teammates to push up. Nice nades, though, coming out from Neanderthals here. Very important. Tried to throw a grenade in the air and just shot. That was funny. But they have done some damage here in Neanderthals to keep the rest of the boys at Era Eternity back.
Meds will be collected by the Pathfinder for Neanderthals. Dezignful gonna just chip away with 41 damage there to Blitziin across the board. Now he's gonna send it. And there's no other way to describe it. Dezignful sends it, but gets returned to sender. And now the bubble fight is going down. Bowswer with the PK in hand. Misses that shot. Connects with 52 as well. Pathfinder trying to stay alive. 99 is big from him. Can he clutch this one as well? Oh, Bowswer nearly did so. But his teammates are there to make it look a little bit more simple. But, I mean, Bowswer with the PK, he was hitting some big damage there.
Well, not only that, but he was delaying the other two that allowed Stuhni to bat up, and then Stuhni rejoined the fight, and it was always going to be just cleanup at that point. If Bowswer had gone down and not hit those Peacekeeper shots, then the round probably goes to Neanderthals. But you can see the ping system. It was really important that Bowswer targeted the one player that was weak before he moved over to the second. And he almost made it, he almost got a little bit hard done by the Peacekeeper shots, to be honest, because he connected really well. And I think his opposition had like 2 HP, so he had to refocus him again. But still just managed to stay calm and ensure that he could help his team gain the round and gain the victory. And now they're a point away from winning map number 2 here.
It could be 2-0 in almost next to no time. The Era Eternity. Nice shots on the cross coming in from Dezignful once more. That's a combined 90 or so damage. Neanderthals now having to take that time again just to get those meds up, and that's where the gap will be closed. And Era Eternity not afraid to do so. Bowswer just holding this back angle and doing some damage as well. Gibby's going to be in front of Bowswer. He's forced to back up. So everybody pretty much up to full HP now. We've got a little bit of a standoff here now.
Well, you said standoff, but there's a lot of damage that's going down. Bubble has to try and save one of the players, Strictly using that bubble. Dezignful getting above them again, and will get the knock. Era Eternity showing their aggression when they need to, and they should be able to clean this up. They should be able to go 2-0 up, unless we see a huge clutch from Exile, but it's not going to happen. Era Eternity take map number 2, 3-1. After losing the initial round.
Yeah, I think that initial round just pissed off Era Eternity, and then they went, okay, it's time to just send it and show you who is boss, and that was exactly what happened. That was over incredibly quickly, especially after that first round, as I say, did not go their way, and I like that, Dan. Sometimes when teams play that round and they've won 3-0 and they're feeling confident, that round goes against them and they think, okay, let's just slow this down a little bit. Let's play, make sure we're making the right decisions. Just send it. It's as simple as it. Just send it on the team. Put them back under pressure, even if it's for a round. You know what I mean? Just put them back under pressure. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then maybe you can slow it down a little bit. But before we go to game number 3, it's time for us to take a quick break. Era Eternity, they're probably hoping they could get into game 3 as quickly as possible. So we'll be back in just a few.
Apex Legends Arena $10,000 Invitational. I'm Taylor Reflections Noble, joined by Onset and Gaskin. Boys, it's looking like a quick series, already 2-0 up is Era Eternity. Neanderthal not providing much of a pushback at all. And Onset, one of the kind of comments you made, and I agree with you, after map number 1, that beatdown 3-0 on Thermal Station, not a single kill going to the way of Neanderthal throughout that 3-0. You said it best, man. There's not really much looking up for the fact of Neanderthal coming back in this series, and I think that was solidified after watching Party Crasher. They do pick up 3 eliminations, but Onset, it's just simply not enough.
It could have been 3-0 so quickly as well. Dezignful could have won that 1v1, and that would have been just so crushing, like the rest of the rounds were. It's night and day between the two teams. There's not really much more I can say about it. I'm not one of these people who commentates, by the way, who likes to kind of sugarcoat performances, because there's no point. Everyone's watching it. Everyone can see what's happening in front of us. And
that's fair.
3-0, 3-1. It could have been 3-0, 3-0. And there's not been a round where I thought, yeah, that was a really good effort from Neanderthals. That could have been really close. It was a 1v1 clutch that arguably Dezignful should have won as well. So it's tough. It's tough for Neanderthals. They're going to have to be better, and they need to start now. Otherwise, they're going to be done.
I'm the same way with you, man. When it comes down to casting, we're just the storytellers. The players tell, the players are the main characters in the story, right? And we just tell it how it is. And at this point, it's looking like Neanderthals just simply aren't here to play. They're going to most likely have to go down loser bracket, Gaskin, in order to, better their chances to make it into the playoff bracket tomorrow. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel as we head into map number 3 Overflow?
No, zero light is
for
me.
Dark.
This is over. I gave them 3-1. I wish I had said 3-0 now with how they've been playing.
You almost did.
I almost did, but I always backtrack a little bit just to give me a little bit of leeway. But I should have fully committed. I think Neanderthals, they're just not as good as Era Eternity when it comes to these engagements. They don't seem to be as comfortable on these arenas maps. I don't know whether that's lack of practice. Maybe they've not played it as much, but Era Eternity just looked like a different squad. Having Dezignful is a really good addition. I think Mark said this a few times, that G2 is just one of the best arena teams that we've seen. So I think that they've been able to get a really good pickup there.
Oh, Era's looking like they're going to be cruising their way to a 3-0 victory. Let's find out. Map number 3 coming your way, boys. Take it away.
Yeah, map number 3 is coming your way, and it might be the last map if we continue on the same pattern that we have so far to this point, Dan. It's been difficult to watch at times. It's been so one-sided, and a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, because Neanderthals have been doing all right in ALGS, and Era Eternity have been doing pretty well as well. I thought it'd be a lot closer than it has been. Where has it been going wrong for Neanderthals?
They just haven't been aggressive enough. They've been far too passive, and they've given too much space to Era Eternity, and Era Eternity have been lapping that one up. I mean, the only time that they were able to get around was when Era Eternity pushed, got aggressive, and then they pushed themselves into a corner where they got into a bubble fight and it was elevated and they just weren't comfortable, missed a few shots here or there, and Neanderthals were able to take the advantage, getting that first knock. Neanderthals need to be the ones pushing Era Eternity. Don't allow them to just confidently walk up on you, but it really is Era Eternity asking all the questions, and unfortunately Neanderthals just don't really have many answers.
Oh, that's a good start. No, as I say that, that's an even better reply from Dezignful. Return to sender as he gets clipped with a 76 headshot, but replies with 150 or so damage himself to get that first knock. And now, once again, it's just a steamroller at the moment. Blitziin, unfortunately, is just shell-shocked as he has 3 players from Era Eternity just flying at him across the map. And that's been the pattern of play, Dan. That's what we've been seeing every single round, pretty much.
Unfortunately, just showed a bit too much of himself. He was... I mean, okay, I've said I wanted Neanderthals to be aggressive and be confident, right? So I can't really judge them for that because they tried to show some aggression there. But after you've missed 2 shots with the wingman, I think you need to get out, because your opponent now has the chance to settle and actually check their aim and ensure that they can hit shots, because they've just watched you miss 2. They're going to be confident. They're going to be thinking, I can hit this, I can actually take him down. And he just got mowed down, did Exile. He did not even have a chance to think about getting out because he'd already been obliterated. If he had taken the initiative and said, I'm going to get out after I've missed those 2 shots, it might have been a bit different. But alas, here we are, Era Eternity again, 1-0 up, and Neanderthals have to try and answer back.
And again on the back foot, you can see like they're just trapped inside of the building here. Blitziin's taken down to pretty much no HP. And look at this, no respect being shown by Bowswer. He flies in and he will be knocked. So maybe an opportunity here, but no. Traded out straight away. Exile, last player alive. Stuhni is just flying at him, even though he doesn't have the HP really to be doing so. And it's just a lack of respect being shown here, to be honest with you, by Era Eternity. They know they're the better team here. They are showing no fear whatsoever. And that is going to be yet another round on the board. And now it's just 1 round, Dan, until this is done and dusted. And Neanderthals can drop down to that lower bracket.
Love, can you put the kettle on? This game's over. It's done. No, it's not coming back. We're finished.
As someone,
it's done.
Yeah, start the car, as Bumble used to say in the cricket, which is something that no one is going to get. No one who's watching.
I do.
If you do, by the way, shout out to you. Send me a DM. Let's talk some cricket, because it's more interesting than this game is right now. Because this is a battering, Dan.
This has just been obliteration. Neanderthals just don't seem to be on the same level as Era Eternity whatsoever. But, and there's always got to be a but, they're still in it right now. 1 more round though for Era Eternity, and then it's game, set, and match. We need to see Neanderthals start hitting some shots. We need to see Neanderthals get that first knock. They've not been able to secure that first knock, and that's been a huge problem. And now Dezignful's whipped out the Sentinel. Oh
man, he's going for the 360 no scopes. I think that shows everything you need to know. Blitziin and Strictl will pick up 1. They will pick up 2. But I feel like this one is... oh, my word, that spray was pretty tasty. However, that is a round on the board for Neanderthals. And if I'm going to guess anything, Dan, I don't think Dezignful's going to pull out the Sentinel again in this next round.
Yeah, that's a freebie from Era Eternity. I think that we know that. We can see that. And that's just showmanship. That's Dezignful and the rest of Era Eternity saying, we're so confident now, let's just push it and go for the no-scopes and see if we can finish this off in style. But they do need to be careful. Don't get ahead of yourselves. You don't want to let this go to 2-2 and then suddenly this map gets thrown away and you get an elongated series where you waste unnecessary energy. Instead, get this secured and then you can think about tomorrow's playoff action. So, Era Eternity, are we going to see something a little bit different? Well, we've got the amped up Sentinel again from Dezignful.
Oh, this is what he needed to do, Dan. He needed to hit it while it was flying through the sky. That was the difference. Oh, he's landed now. disappointing. However, Dezignful playing this one a little bit slower, trying to get some angles, not quite connecting this time. But you look at this, as 2 grapples, there's an 88. I said that was the problem. Keep yourself in the skies, Dezignful. It's much easier to hit shots.
Now he's looking around, and now Stuhni's just been able to push in and take advantage of that. It cracked, and bang! Dezignful started to put on a show. This man just does not miss. There's the 360! It doesn't matter. But Era Eternity, they close it out. 3-1. Neanderthals will drop. Era Eternity move on to the playoffs in quite an emphatic fashion.
Dezignful, I love you, and I mean it in every single sense of the word. That is showmanship, that is entertaining, and that is what I want to see from Apex players when they are playing the game and they are feeling themselves, flying through the skies and hitting some nasty shots with that Sentinel. There's one thing I said, Dan, and I don't want to say that I'm like a genius, like mega brain, and I'll throw this one at you actually, Taylor, but it's much easier as a Pathfinder to hit shots when you're midair. I don't know why, it just is. Dezignful proved it.
Well, I mean, fast-paced players, clearly, especially in Arena. Like, Dezignful just disrespect. Like, this is the thing. Neanderthals
no, he disrespected them. That's 100% right. That's 100% right.
I was going to say, we spent more time trying to teach Gaskin how to say Neanderthals than that entire series just lasted. And that's saying something. That's pretty wild, all right? Dezignful filling in, but you know him from G2. And by the way, he's been in the championship circle before. I do believe G2 won, I think, the first ever tournament, if I'm not mistaken, that we ended up running for Arena. So he's looking to go back-to-back this time around, obviously following along suit with the Era boys. But yeah, this was... not a lot to take away from this outside of the fact that Neanderthal just quite simply was not up to snuff at all to face off against Era.
I think the one thing we could take away from this series is it gave us a chance to expand our vocabulary, and not only with the word Neanderthals, but words for like, destroyed, decimation, obliteration, and yeah, we learned a little bit about about cricket. I mean,
I just thought that was a bug, but apparently it's a real thing. Like you guys actually follow. It's a sport.
It's almost a sport. Yeah, it's almost a sport. It's the only sport in the world where you can play for 5 days and nobody wins. That's all I'll say about it.
Fair enough, man. I need to check it out. Here it is, that mid shot. And by the way, that was the first one of like 4 he ended up connecting. That was the second. That was the third. And I assume he connected. He didn't connect it right here. I think his teammate actually finished him off, but that was just about 4. Yeah, I mean, when you start seeing plays like that, you know it's pretty much over with. And the reality is, after Era, Gaskin won Thermal Station and Party Crasher, they didn't feel threatened. There was nothing that Neanderthals was doing to make them feel threatened at all. And speaking in regards to Era, so it came down to the fact that once Overflow came around, and this is just a high pace, high flying, game that's taking place or map in general. Man, I mean, Era just took it to literally Okay, let me take a step back. Gaskin, was there anything that Neanderthals could have done differently? Because you said aggression, and I felt the aggression was there. It just didn't work.
I think that was the worst map they could have got to then change their playstyle, because you have to be aggressive to try and get the resources in that map by like kind of Pathfinder swinging and going for one of the pills. But unfortunately, you leave yourself vulnerable to shots from the other player who's also being aggressive, and you get naturally some 1v1s that occur. They tried to be a little bit aggressive, but it just didn't really work out. And after that series, I've decided I don't like Apex. I love it. I love Apex. And that's a throw to some cricket as well, just for Mark.
I'm going to clip that.
No, clip it, edit it. That's not fair.
Yeah, let's see what we can do with that. I'm sure I can deal some damage.